Madam Speaker. As a Member of Parliament for Renfrew-Nipissing-Pembroke, I urge this House to instruct the Standing Committee on Public Safety and National Security to get out of Ottawa and listen to the concerns of ordinary working middle-class Canadians regarding Bill C-71, an act to bring back the firearms registry. More importantly, rather than pretend to listen to the concerns of Canadians, I urge those Liberal MPs and their friends who sit to their left in this chamber to listen and act if they have any desire to be more than a one-term wonder. I believe a short history lesson for all the newly elected government MPs is in order. I owe my seat in Parliament to a very arrogant former Liberal MP who insisted on being Ottawa's gun registry messenger to the good people of Renfrew-Nipissing-Pembroke. When constituents told him to scrap the registry, he chose to lecture rather than to listen. And you could feel the tension in the room as he screamed at the constituents to get a life. A room packed with voters at the Pembroke Outdoor Sportsmen's Club when they asked for the courtesy to hear their concerns about Bill C-68. They gave Hector a new life, all right, as the defeated MP for Renfrew-Nipissing-Pembroke. A one-term wonder he became and has been ever since. Prior to my election as the MP for a brand new political party, Renfrew-Nipissing-Pembroke was considered to be one of the safest grit seats in Canada. It even stayed red through both the Diefenbaker and Mulrooney sweeps. The former MP thought he had a position for life. The second time he ran against me, my plurality jumped from 2,500 to 18,000 voters. The farmers, hunters, and outdoor enthusiasts never forgave him, just as they will never forgive every Liberal MP who votes for Bill C-71. Having the committee get out of Ottawa, away from Gerald Butt's PMO talking points, and hear from ordinary Canadians is actually doing a favor for those MPs who can also expect to be one-term wonders. If Liberal MPs are afraid to defend Bill C-71 before it's passed into legislation, how do they expect to defend it during the next federal election? Consultation must be real consultation, not the fake consultation put on by the member of Canada Carleton who showed up in my riding yesterday to lecture a handful of people about how Big Brother knows best. This is what a voter had to say about that bogus meeting set up by the soon-to-be one-term wonder for Canada Carleton. And I quote, "Number one on 101 ways on how to lose a riding in Ontario in Renfrew-Nipissing-Pembroke is hold a bogus gun reform meeting in an area full of hunters and recreational shooters and sports shooters by telling them it's okay when it's not." End of quote. The sad thing about the fake consultation set up by the temporary member for Canada Carleton is that she's afraid to hold a real consultation in her own riding. The smart voters in my riding of Renfrew-Nipissing-Pembroke know I am not afraid to hold a real consultation with the people of my riding. I've always been Renfrew-Nipissing-Pembroke's representative to Ottawa, not the other way around. I'm pleased to confirm that, unlike the pretend consultation held in Petawawa by the temporary MP for Canada Carleton, the information session I hosted with trusted independent experts from the firearms community, Steve Torino, Tony Bernardo, and Chris Diarmani, packed the Cobden Agricultural Hall with hundreds of participants. The people of Canada want their democratic right to be heard respected. They deserve to be heard by the parliamentary committee studying Bill C-71. Silencing the voices of Canadians will not make them go away. It will only make them louder. I hear the voices of the Canadians who want the Standing Committee on Public Safety and National Security to hear them. If the member for Hastings, Lennox, and Addington is listening to this debate, this is what his constituents are saying about Bill C-71. Mike from Deseronto writes, in this area, you were warned about siding with the lunatic you're serving, destroying this country now with this blatant attack on legal gun owners. Legal gun owners are not the problem. You, in this area, fully know this. If not, you best move out of the area, as we do not need this form of liberal lunacy spreading to our children. Michelle from Marmor writes, this proposed legislation will do nothing to stop criminals. Criminals do not follow any rules. It's the law-abiding citizens that suffer the consequences. Mike from Napanee writes, I keep trying to understand the liberal fixation with destroying the sport of law-abiding hunters and sports shooters while ignoring the real bad guys. I believe that I have finally figured it out. Politicians are so afraid of not being politically correct that they won't target gangs. Instead, they go after law-abiding firearms owners. We've already proven time and time again that we will obey the law. Adding to it does one thing and one thing only. It makes it appear that the government is doing something about crime. Please stop using us as scapegoats and go after the real criminals. Bruce from Maddock writes, listen to Canadians for a change. Richard from Flinton writes, once again, our government is set on fixing a problem that is not a problem. Why don't you get tough on criminals and leave law-abiding people alone? I'm so sick of hearing on the news, known to police. You guys are like a dog with a bone. This is the message from Larry from the riding of Peterborough-Kawartha. He asked me to send it to his temporary government MP. I am very discouraged with Bill C-71. I have been a hunter and a recreational sports shooter for 39 years. During that time, I have met thousands of fellow enthusiasts from all over Canada who respect and enjoy the shooting heritage and the privileges we have in our country. The current firearm laws are sufficient and fulfill the intended purpose for the majority of law-abiding citizens. Leave them alone. More restricting legislation will only expose myself and my colleagues to more unnecessary red tape, while the criminal element continues to flourish, unabated, especially in large cities. I realize that this impending legislation is only a political power maneuver to placate the liberal anti-gun voters. It will not begin to address the real issues. Thank you for letting me share my opinion and thoughts. Please do not limit debate regarding this regressive legislative bill. This is the message Brian is sending to the temporary MP for the Bay of Quinte. So much for a promise of a transparent government. Another election promise broken. Can't wait for 2019. Blaine has a special message for the temporary MP for Northumberland, Peterborough South. I don't think you realize what you've done to unite the 2 million plus firearms owners. This will reflect voter turnout in 2019 for sure. In the previous election, you were able to get all the legalized marijuana votes, but once legal, they will simply be uninterested in any further support from your government. At that point, the firearms community will become the voters that will turn the tides. Firearms community is an all-party community that are equally tired of the constant attack of completely safe, law-abiding enthusiasts. This Bill C-71 does zero to go after guns and gangs. What it is a slap in the face to intelligent, law-abiding citizens by a smug group of individuals who believe they are duping all Canadians, including non-firearms enthusiasts, into believing that they are safer. Shame on you. Of all the issues that divide urban and rural Canada, gun control has to be the most prominent. Add to this the fact that people behind gun control in Canada have repeatedly misrepresented the facts regarding gun control, and one can see why people who live in rural, small-town Canada reject the big city approach of the Liberal Party. When the Liberal Party introduced its gun control bill C-68, it made a variety of exaggerated claims as to why it was doing so. The most exaggerated claim was the cost to taxpayers for the gun registry, $85 million. The Liberal gun registry cost the taxpayers of Canada over $1 billion, and that amount did not include the costs of and lost jobs to outfitters, tourist lodges, and other small businesses that were shoved out of business by Bill C-68, the government gun law. The second most widely exaggerated claim was that their bill would reduce crime. Values drive, guide actions and beliefs. They influence perceptions of the world and allow us to make distinctions between good and evil. Values are culturally transmitted, often by parents and increasingly by the media. Values play an important, though often denied, role in gun control debates. Someone with anti-gun values is likely to support anything called gun control. Someone with one pro-gun values is likely to resist anything called gun control. Firearms owners are reluctant and bewildered participants in a debate they did not start. They were willing to follow the reasonable laws, but felt betrayed when the actions did not end the debate. After the last federal election, reasonable Canadians thought the debate was over. Support and opposition to gun control, smoke screens, and partial analogies aside, depends to a great extent on views on the place of firearms in Canadian society. Some citizens have little or no tolerance for guns. Arguments about recreational use or wildlife management are meaningless to them. Those who lawfully own firearms find the views of the first group incomprehensible. At the level of values, the basic question is whether or not Canadians have the right to own firearms. Canadian gun owners are not campaigning for the right to keep and bear arms.
I'm sorry. There's a point of order. The honourable member for Timmins James Bay. Correctly,
I think it's very important. She said that gun owners are bewildered when they listen to her. I am too. So was that what she said, or did I misinterpret her intent?
The honourable member, I believe that's a point of debate, and I would just I would ask him to stand up for questions and comments when it's time for that. Right now, we still have 7.5 minutes. The honourable member for Renfrew-Nipissing-Pembroke.
And it's this smug arrogance that is behind the refusal to allow debate on this bill, that shut down committee, and that is not allowing Canadians to be heard. And these Canadians want to be heard, and they're relaying through me what they want to tell the government and other people opposing the gun laws. Those of us who support the right to own a gun see the further restrictions as an attack on the right to own private property. Both positions reflect fundamentally opposed but unspoken value assumptions. Both sides feel the other is arguing in bad faith from a flawed outlook. Gun owners favor hunting, while many non-gun owners oppose it. Among those who agree strongly with the right to own private property, including a firearm, a big majority favor hunting, while those who strongly disagree oppose hunting too. Attitudes on these two basic values drive the gun control debate, but are rarely mentioned. One of the rules of discourse in our rational society is that proposals have to be justified on a utilitarian grounds. If someone were to say, I'm for gun control because I don't like guns and no one should have them, or I'm against gun control because I like guns and want to keep mine, no further discussion would be fruitful. Proponents of additional gun controls have frequently been heard to say, we don't want to confiscate your hunting guns or stop legitimate gun use. But is this really true? An indication may be that that they're concealing their basic values comes when it's suggested that the controls will be costly and ineffective. Proponents of new controls have talked about the benefits of gun control 20 years from now without always specifying this is a society in which no one but government agents will have guns. The gun subculture, wherein parents teach their children how to shoot and hunt, is apparently to be extinguished. Many Canadians are second or third generation urbanites who think hunting is barbaric. Their conception of hunting and hunters is something quite fantastic. If you think of the lower income family man purchasing a permit, hunting under strict regulations designed for wildlife management, in the hope of feeding his family better for the winter. From the no right to hunt point of view, the goal of gun control is to reduce the number of firearms in the country, to reduce firearms use, and to reduce hunting. If both can be eliminated, that would be even better. From this perspective, gun control has already been extremely effective in reducing participation in shooting, sports, and hunting. Membership in hunting and shooting clubs have declined. Turnouts for competitions involving pistol shooting, rifle competitions, shotgun competitions, trap and skeet, the number of firearm retailers and the number of hunting licenses issued have all declined. The overall trend is clear. The decline in hunting licenses has direct and indirect consequences and costs for wildlife management. Much wildlife management is paid for by hunting licenses. If hunters cannot be counted on to control excess populations, many more animals will starve and crop damage will increase. There are also economic costs associated with the decline in other shooting sports. It appears that it's easy to discourage the law-abiding Canadian from participating in a sport by simply increasing the regulations every year. For those with no right to hunt values, these arguments are irrelevant, and a decline in hunting is a victory. The RCMP reported a stunning drop in the issuance of firearms acquisition certificates, FACs, another success from the no right to hunt value point of view. If we take the rate of FACs issued from 1984 to 1990, about 600 per 100,000 as the normal rate, there will probably be a rebound from the low of 1994 rate of 169 to 169 per 100,000. With these new regulations, many will be discouraged from applying for acquisition rights with the new firearms possession permits. Additionally, a number of firms have been forced out of business. C71 is a continuation of promoting the values of those who are in the no right to hunt camp. With C71's words and bewildering complexities, few gun owners or police officers will be certain whether an act is criminal. It allows the RCMP to ban any firearm it wishes, regardless of whether it's commonly used in hunting or target shooting. It adds more layers of regulations for shooting clubs. It discourages people from recreational firearms use through increasing costs and red tape. Values are important in the gun control debate. Those who have anti-firearm values can be expected to support any measures which restrict firearms use. Those who have pro-firearms values can be expected to oppose these measures. Logic and reason are of little use when it comes to values. Emotion and a sense of right and wrong are the foundations of value disputes. Just as partisans in some debates are seldom converted by the opposition, those who have pro or anti-firearms values are probably not open to argument. The greater cost or reduction in public services, the less the support. Gun owners are law-abiding citizens. Since 1978, all legal owners have been checked out by the police before being granted an FAC. Some, however, are at a higher risk than others. If the low-risk people register in great numbers and the higher-risk people do not register, as is certainly likely, the registration records will be relatively useless, an experience Canada has had twice before with firearms legislation. The first was in the 1920s to register firearms purchased by aliens, and the second was an attempted universal registration during the Second World War. The argument has been made that before domestic conflict arises, the participants are law-abiding and will register their guns. Public opinion may support building a new highway, but the opposition from people who will forfeit their homes to it will be tenacious, long-lasting, and divisive. The strongest proponents of registrations are those who think Canadians should not have a right to own a firearm. They rarely take a personal stake in the law. It's not their property which will be prohibited and not produce any direct benefit to them in most cases. They will probably not be completely satisfied so long as any Canadian is still allowed to use a gun. The values driving the gun registry debate are deeply felt, but often not discussed.